All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Legendary Champions. Today I got a special treat for you. I'm looking at a top 10 heroes in Marvel Champions. So I'm going to take the first 10 heroes released, and we're going to rank them from top to bottom, 10 to 1. First thing I will say is that this was a very hard list to make because I don't feel like any of these heroes are really bad. There's pros and cons with every hero, most of them anyway. And trying to sort of judge them on any objective criteria is kind of difficult. So I tried to be as objective as possible. And so I broke it up into 3 areas. I broke it up into theme, power, and ease of play, or at least that's what I'm calling them. And then I tried to rank each of those heroes on each of those 3 things, and then just do an average. Just to kind of explain the criteria, what I mean by those 3 things, theme, I would say, is how do the hero's mechanics, abilities make them feel like you are that character while you're playing? How does it make you feel like you're using their powers or abilities or mannerisms, behavior, whatever, to make them feel like, to make you feel like you're playing as that character? Power is how good they are overall in the game, based on their ability to thwart, attack, defend, their overall control abilities in the game, and then also their card draw / resource manipulation. So those are kind of the 5 things I tried to pull from to determine who was more powerful than, to determine their rank. They're not ranked all in that, but determine how high they fall under their power level on what that total would be. And then the last one would be, I'm calling it ease of play. I don't know if that's the best term for it, but basically how simple it is for you to do what you need to do to play them effectively. I think some heroes are just inherently just pretty straightforward. And it's not to say they're bad. Some of those are the better heroes. It's just some of them might have a higher learning curve. You might have to play them in sort of a very nuanced way to get the most out of them. And so that's, I tried to give a ranking based off of that, because some of them I think are just they're trickier to learn. And so I wanted to kind of include that in the criteria. So those are the 3 things that I'm sort of basing this on. I tried to be unbiased. I'm not completely unbiased. I promise I'll make mistakes along the way. But anyway, here's the list, and starting with number 10, the 10th spot. So it's probably the hardest one to do because I really don't think any of these characters are bad, and I know somebody out there will be disappointed that I put their character on the bottom. So, that being said, there are 5 people at number 10. No, I'm just kidding. For number 10, I went with Ms. Marvel. Now, I don't even know if I think that Ms. Marvel is the worst character in the game. I don't think that. What I do think is that I am biased and I don't know a lot about the character. I tried to learn some about her theme and whatnot, but I don't understand all the nuances of the theme that's built into her kit because I just don't know the character that well. And if I'm honest, if I'm going to play, she's probably the last one I would pick, and that's mostly because I'm not familiar with her again. I think she has fun abilities. I think they're probably mostly thematic. She's definitely fun to play as. I just am much more familiar with the other characters and would choose them over her if I were just going to take it to the table. So I did ding her on theme. I gave her a 5 for theme. This is 1 out of 10, 1 through 10. And gave her a 5 for theme. Gave her a 7 for power because I do think she can be struggle with certain things in solo. And her stats are low, but she can do a lot of thwarting and attacking by being able to pull those things back with her ability. She can do those quite effectively, but she can be tricky to learn how to use as well. As far as ease of play, I gave her a 5 because to really get the full use out of her, there are a lot of nuances, things that you have to learn how to use her supports for. And especially if you're a new player coming to the table, you may struggle with trying to figure that out and figuring out what choices to make as far as what event to keep pulling back, and the timing for how to use those. So I put her in number 10. All right, moving on to number 9. This was also a really hard one for me. I went with Thor. Here's why it was hard. I really like playing as Thor. I recognize that he has his struggles. But I gave him an 8 for theme. I do think he is thematic in a certain way. It's kind of a very specific aspect of his character that they're kind of going for, the sort of arrogant side of him. But he does have he's very thematic with Mjolnir, with throwing it, with the hammer strike, having to pull it back, being able to call it all the time to him. That all is very thematic. I think that part works really well. As far as power level, I gave him a 5. Now, that was hard to do too because he's got good hit points, which of course help keep him alive. That's sort of part of his defense. And then he's got, I think, the most consistent high damage in the game out of anybody. But he has also the worst thwarting in the game, and thwarting is inherently more important than attack because thwarting will kill you a lot faster than not having a high attack will. And also his hand size, card draw, resource manipulation is probably the worst as well. So those things just really ding him. And then his ease of play I gave a 5 as well because he's just tricky to learn. Getting over the hurdles of his resources and the thwart is really hard. Learning how to use Defender of the Nine Realms at the right time, and sometimes it's just never the right time to use it, it's hard. There's also kind of 2 ways to play Thor. The face tank, kill the villain as fast as you can and hope to do it before he wins by thwart. And then the other way to take your time and build up, not really attacking, but even that way you kind of have to have a way to deal with thwart. And so he's very nuanced, he's very tricky to learn how to use effectively and to get around his weaknesses. All right, moving on to number 8, I'm going with Black Panther. Now, I have come around to Black Panther. I thought he was kind of difficult to use at first, but his stats have always been good. The 2/2/2 retaliate's fun to use. I was disappointed that he didn't have an alter ego ability that lasted for the game. But I really came around to him more as I learned how much resources are a part of his kit and utilizing those effectively. It really allows you to pay, no matter what aspect you're running, allows you to pay to do a lot of stuff in your turn. Wakanda Forever is still hard to use though. It's still tricky to learn how to do the upgrades effectively, and even if you do, you're probably not going to be doing them every turn unless you're in a really long game. And you're able to get your deck really small and get him running consistently. But you can also build those up. If you have a long game, you get all the upgrades out, you can save up a lot of Wakanda Forevers, you can have really big turns. So theme-wise, I gave him a 7. I think the Vibranium resource aspect is pretty cool. And the Wakanda Forever, being able to use the suit, all those things are cool and relate to the character. I'm not sure the Wakanda Forever forcing him to use the suit is super thematic. But all the things what those things do are thematic. I gave him a 7 on power level because he can do some cool things with those upgrades, being able to trigger a big thing at the very end on the last upgrade. And of course the resource generation, he's got the best out of pretty much anybody, I think. So those really helped. And then ease of play, I gave him a 5 as well because he's figuring out, the best way to use those upgrades with Wakanda Forever is difficult. And even learning how to use the Retaliate can be a little bit tricky. Learning how to use that best for new players. So, Black Panther, number 8. And then for number 7, we're going with Black Widow. This one's probably also one people are not going to love. And this is for me too, I think there is an aspect of I don't love picking the character to play. I do think she is kind of fun. I just don't personally love that style of play. The setup, the counters and triggering them. That's not quite as fun for me. So, but that being said, she has great stats. I love the abilities with the preparation cards as far as ways you can cancel. And I love being able to ping the damage around on a bunch of different targets. That's a lot of fun. She's got a lot of fun cards in her kit. And so the numbers I gave her for Black Widow, I gave her a 7 on theme. And the reason for that is the preparation cards for me is I get what they're going for, and I can't even say how I do it differently, but I'm just not 100% sure that it really feels more like a trap style, and I'm not sure if it's maybe the best way to bring the theme of her spy character in. I think it works mostly. I'm just not maybe in love with that idea. On power level, I gave her a 7. Her control ability is really cool, and it works really well. But you can get really dinged on that low health and not having a great way to defend. The stealth suit helps, but it is tricky to learn how to use. She also does not deal big high damage in any way. She's got the Dance of Death, which gets her about 6, and that's decent, but mostly you're just kind of spreading around little bits of damage. And I do like that. I like playing that way sometimes, but it is trickier, and it does make your game take longer, especially in solo mode. All right, let's go to number 6. Number 6, I'm going with She-Hulk. Okay. There. So She-Hulk, and you'll see the kind of general theme I have for the bottom 5 here is kind of a difficulty in learning how to use them. For She-Hulk, and a lot of these too, a lot of them are able to do really well in certain areas, but maybe their weaknesses are a little more noticeable in other areas. And so She-Hulk does some really cool stuff. I actually gave her a 9 on theme because her cards are just very thematic. She can do really cool, big, strong attacks. She's got rage type themed attacks where she feels like the Incredible Hulk in that style. She's got some cool thwarting cards and a lot of her thwart cards kind of stick to the alter ego side, which is also cool because it's like her side of being a lawyer. That would be more of her thwart side. And she does some of the biggest, strongest attacks in the game. Very consistent, high damage dealer. So she actually does really well on theme. And on power level, so I gave her a 9 for theme. For power, I gave her a 7. Again, she's got great attack, some of the best in the game. She's got pretty decent thwart. It's not great, but it's decent. Decent because it's more situational. Having to be an alter ego to do a lot of your thwarting can hurt you. And then for ease of play, I gave her a 5. And that's largely due to the smaller hand size, just making it so difficult to pay for the things you want to pay for. And so you have to do a lot of setup, bring a lot of things to the table to help her be able to pay for the cards that you need. But she can also be tricky to learn when to switch back and forth to do the thwarting, and just figuring that out. Now, that being said, you could probably power through with her anyway because she's just got such high damage and such, and her hit points are so high that, even if you're not playing her optimally, you could probably power through and win a game not knowing a lot of what you're doing. That's good and bad, but I think it speaks at least to just how much room there is to play with in her kit. It's also tricky to learn how to use Gamma Slam right, and only having one of them in there, it's hard to get it at the right time and, allow yourself to get hurt enough to use it to do a lot of damage, and also protect yourself. So there's just some tricky things there to really get her to use really optimally. Okay. Then we're going with Captain Marvel, number 5. All right, for Captain Marvel, obviously she's really good. What dropped her to number 5 for me was the theme. Now, she can do a lot, right? She can thwart, she can do high amounts of damage, and she's got great card draw. The issue for her, to me, as far as her theme, is Captain Marvel amongst these heroes. Either her, Thor, maybe Doctor Strange, right? In the comics, she would be crazy powerful, right? And to me, she just doesn't, in any particular area, really excel and feel amazingly powerful to me. The energy, I think it's energy channel, or absorption, the one where you build up on. Being able to do those big 10 damage, that's cool, and that's probably the most thematic part of her kit. But her other 5 damage thing, that'll get you a card, but 5 damage compared to I know she's got the 10 damage, but 5 damage compared to an 8 damage, it just feels like she should have more that makes her feel really impressive. And to me, she's just got, some really good areas, mostly all around. So I'm dinging her pretty heavily on theme, just because I feel like, as Captain Marvel, she should feel more powerful than she does to me. I think I get what they're going for with the card draw, because card draw is such a powerful part of her kit. And it's such a powerful mechanism in this game, and most games like this. It just doesn't feel particularly thematic when every other one of these characters feels incredibly thematic to me. And only small ways do they maybe not feel super, super like the hero that you're playing. And Captain Marvel just doesn't really bring that to life for me in the way that I wanted. But it doesn't mean she's not good. She's still really good in the game. She also has Captain Marvel's helmet, which is one of the worst cards in the game, and that's maybe dinging her a little bit too. But anyway, I gave her a 5 for theme. I gave her a 9 for power because she's really not missing anything in her kit. She's got great porting, great damage, great resource with the cards. And I gave her a 9 for ease of play because she's also just not hard to use. The card drawing sometimes can be hard with other characters because you have to get other cards out that help increase their resource generation or help, like Avengers Mansion, help them draw their cards. You can draw a card on both sides, right on her hero card. You don't have to play anything extra. And she's got a lot of other stuff that'll help you do that too. So she's just very easy to kind of pick up and just start doing cool big stuff with. Next one, number 4, Iron Man. All right, Iron Man. Why is he number 4? Right? Why is he not Iron? So Iron Man, I gave very good scores to. I gave him an 8 for a theme. I dinged him a little bit on theme just because I feel like the building a suit, while very thematic, is kind of one very specific aspect of his character. And somewhat like Thor in that regard. Like, Thor is made to kind of seem very arrogant. Well, Tony Stark's very arrogant too, and that doesn't really come across in his thing. I feel like I'm playing Iron Man from Iron Man 1. And he's very good, but he's just kind of building the suit, right? I feel like there's other ways you could make a very thematic Iron Man that's not just him building a suit, that's him just kind of jumping into the suit and he's trying to figure out how to reroute energy, or he's just being really kind of arrogant and an arrogant leader, right? There's just other ways to that I think you could have gone, and they just kind of really honed in on one thing, and it is very thematic, but it's like that's most of his kit is him building that suit. It's kind of one big thematic thing and not a bunch of little things, which is a lot of the other heroes are able to kind of do a lot of different things that make them feel thematic. That being said, I did give him a 10 on power level because I think fully built Iron Man's probably still the strongest character in the game out of all of these. He can just do so much with his full suit. He's got it all, right? He can throw around damage, he can ping it off, he can still do huge big hits with damage with his event cards. He can do thwarting with I think it's arc reactor, allows him to thwart himself, but he's also got the helmet for extra thwart. And all those are pretty cheap cards, and by the time you get them all out there, your deck is so small that you're flying through it. So he's crazy good when he's fully built. Ease of play, I gave him a 6 because I don't think he's super hard to learn how to optimize, but if you're just sitting down to play this game, you are gonna have to learn, because you're not gonna play like everybody else. You're gonna have to learn to stay in Tony Stark mode for a couple turns, get the suit going a little bit, and learn how to ramp up without hurting yourself and getting into a bad situation. So there is a bit of a learning curve there. I don't think it's as much as some other people, but once you do it, it's pretty easy to get the flow of it every game you go into. Okay, so top 3. Number 3, Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man is very good. He's very fun to play. He's got pretty good stats. The 2 and the 3 is great, right? There's nobody here with a 3 defense besides Spider-Man. But I'm not in love with defense anyway. So let's jump into the numbers. Spider-Man. Okay, I gave him a 10 for theme. I don't think there's anybody that really compares to Spider-Man's kit overall. There's so much in his kit that makes it feel like Spider-Man. Aunt May, that heals him so you don't have to heal. There's Webbed Up, which is basically throwing 2 stuns. There's his web shooters, which he's got one for each hand, right? He's got two. And they're limited resource, right? So they can run out. The spider tracers, allowing you to reduce threat when you tag it on a minion. The back foot, avoiding the damage. The spider sense, keeping you from treachery. There's so much, right, that's just so thematic for him. So many different things, and not just like Iron Man, where he has kind of like a few things. Like every one of cards in his kit just feels so thematic. So I gave him a 10 for theme. For power, I gave him a 6. And I dinged him quite a bit for that because he just does not have good fort. And that really hurts him. You really have to have an answer for that when you're going into battle with him. And that's why they pair him with Justice right out of the bat, because he just really needs something to go with that. You can do him with other aspects, obviously, but you've got to have an answer for that, because what's in his kit, the one thwart on his card, and the Spider Tracer, you might be playing a villain that just doesn't have a lot of minions, right? And you got to have that Spider Tracer, at the right time, or you're going to be hurting. There's just not enough there within the kit itself to really make him as good as some of these other guys. Now, that being said, he's got everything else. he can cancel stuff. He can fully block damage. He can stun a guy for 2 turns, right? There's just a ton of stuff he can do. Plus, he has the best single attack card in the game, Swinging Web Kick. That straight 8 damage for 3 is the most economical damage in the game, period, so far, right? It's just that good. And then ease of play, I gave a 9 to. You really don't have to set up with Spider-Man. You really jump in. It's easy to just kind of get with the cards and just be like, you know what, you use the card when you know to use it, right? You got the Swinging Web Kick, you play it, you do the damage. You have a backflip in your hand, you use it to not get attacked. He's just really simple to understand. There's not a lot of building you have to do. All right, so top 2, coming down to the new hero, Doctor Strange and Captain America. And number 2, Doctor Strange. Now, I think out of all the heroes here, the most OP, the heroes that feel the most OP are probably Doctor Strange and Captain America. Obviously, I said Iron Man has a high power level, but just overall, that's overall rating everything else. As far as feeling OP, right? Doctor Strange, Captain America are at the top of that list. For me, I know Iron Man, for a lot of people, would do that too, but as far as rating all these things together, they're going to land at the top. So, Doctor Strange. I gave him a 9 for theme. I think he's got about every crazy spell he does in the comic books you can do in here, in the game. It's almost hard to ding him on theme at all, because he's got his 15 card set, plus he's got a 5 card invocation deck, plus he's got that Sorcerer Supreme basic card, which I'm trying not to include it as part of a kit, but it's hard not to, because it's almost an auto include. Again, maybe for the life of this game, for Doctor Strange. So as far as theme goes, he's got it for sure. I gave him a 9 for power. Doctor Strange feels incredibly powerful when you play him. And that's because he can manipulate so many things that other heroes can't do. Being able to do things with the status cards can really affect the game overall. It's very much a control, similar to Black Widow in how it feels, but at the same time very different. Instead of canceling a lot of specific cards, although he can do some of that too, he can just stop people in their tracks, being able to control completely shut down attacks with with stunned and toughness. You can just wipe out completely huge big attacks from the villain, and that is just a really cool feeling. I did ding him a little bit on damage. He probably feels the most powerful out of any of them to me. I dinged him a little bit because he just doesn't have a lot of damage dealing cards. Similar to how Black Widow is going to take you a while to win because you're dealing just little bits of damage, he has a few decently high damage cards, but there's so few of them that most of the time you're going to be just kind of controlling things, making sure you're fine and alive, nothing's crazy in the game, and then you'll do damage kind of along the way, and then eventually you'll beat the villain. You're not going to feel powerful because you're doing 30 damage in a turn. You can get some high numbers, but that's going to be rare. Most of the time, you're just going to be trying to keep the villain from going crazy. And so, 9 in theme, 9 in power, 8 in ease of play. He plays kind of as a combo of Black Widow and Spider-Man. I think he's a little bit easier to play than Black Widow as far as learning those timing things. The Invocation deck is not, it's a little hard to learn to manipulate it, but it's always, having it always right there at your disposal, face-up card, the concept of it is very easy to learn. Just kind of getting down the timing of it is the harder part. But the super powerful effects on it, it's going to be pretty intuitive. And so I gave him an 8 for that. And last, but certainly not least, Captain America. So, Captain America, number 1. Why is he number 1? I feel like Captain America, theme-wise, stands up to any of these, right? The shield, largely because of the shield. The shield toss, the retaliate on the shield, the extra defense, his super soldier serum, his ally, the apartment. He's got just a ton of theme playing into what he's doing, and that's largely based around the shield, but it all works. He's also got his hero abilities and his alter ego ability, which are huge in terms of his theme. Being able to lessen the cost of an ally as you play it. He's the natural leader, right? And then the hero ability, I can do this all day. Being able to ready again every turn is super cool. And you can just keep hitting and hitting and hitting whatever you need to do. So, a 9 in theme, a 9 in power. And I didn't really have anything to ding him on. Other than that, he just doesn't have one area that he feels overtly strong in, but at the same time, he doesn't really have an area where he's weak. And so that's, part of what helps put him at the top of the list. He doesn't have a weakness, right? He's an excellent thwarter. He has excellent damage. He has excellent defense and readiness. He's got great card, resource generation, manipulation. There's no real weakness in his kit. And so in ease of play, I gave him a 10 because he's, him and Spider-Man are probably the easiest, most straightforward characters to play. There's not a lot to understand, not a lot to build up. And there is stuff you can build up with him to make him stronger, but none of it you never feel it a hindrance in doing that. You can play a big attack card like Heroic Strike, stun the villain, and play down a super soldier serum to help you pay for that in the same turn. You can be building up as you go while doing lots of cool stuff. You could probably argue that there's some trick in learning how to use the shield, and that's fair, but I think it's mostly pretty intuitive, to the point that if there is any difficult in understanding how to use him, a lot of it's just people know the character, and it just makes sense that, hey, you do shield toss, you have to pull it back in your hand. And that's something that, while a detriment in the game, is something that just makes it feel more thematic at the same time. And that almost works in his favor. So I went ahead and gave him a 10 on that. I think he's, again, there's just not a real weakness in his kit. And so for that, I think I just had to give him the top spot. So that's my ranking. I know one thing when I do top 10 lists is my philosophy towards that is, if you were really being completely 100% objective, and again, I'm trying to be as objective as possible, but if you're really being 100% objective, most of these lists are going to look very similar. So, if it's me, I like to, make mine a little different here or there. I try to be as fair as possible, but I want it to feel a little different. And so when I watch a top 10 list, I appreciate the ones that are not just like all the other ones and that have a little bit more flavor of the person that's doing the list. And so this is what I have here. Now, I really wanted to put Thor in like number 2 position. But again, I tried to be objective because I think I've played Thor more than anybody else. I've been really frustrated by him, but I've also had a ton of fun with him. And so I recognize that he has his hang-ups, but he's fun to play to me. So, but anyway, this is my top 10. I'll run through them real quick again. Miss Marvel, number 10. Thor, number 9. Black Panther, number 8. Black Widow, number 7. She-Hulk, number 6. Captain Marvel, number 5. Iron Man, number 4. Spider-Man, number 3. Doctor Strange, number 2. And Captain America, in at number 1. Top 10 Marvel Champions heroes so far. Stay legendary, champions.